Alright, forgive me, I'm a few days late. I know, yes, JPEGMAFIA dropped an album and I'm late reacting to it, but here's the video. What's going on, guys? My name is Doug. It is the sweatiest music reviewer on YouTube. JPEGMAFIA dropped his album, All My Heroes Are Cornballs, and I am pretty excited for this one, I'm not gonna lie. Before we get into this video though, I would like to ask everybody who has been rocking with the channel for a while now and has been supporting me for a while to consider supporting the channel on Patreon. Because until now, the patrons have helped me to keep this channel up and running, but I would be able to do so much more than just that with some additional support on there. I would be able to increase the quality of these videos exponentially with increased support on Patreon. I would get better equipment, better editing software, music production software, and a better PC to be able to get back into making music production videos on the channel. I'm working on making the rewards for being a patron worthwhile as well. And just in general, the quality of the videos, because of the support on the Patreon, will increase. I'll be able to eventually produce merch and all of that, all the cool YouTuber stuff. I plan on doing all of that eventually, but I'm in need of some extra support. You can check out the tiers, the descriptions, the rewards, all on the Patreon. The link is in the description and in the top right hand corner. And even if you would just be willing to take a look at the page, I would already really appreciate you. You guys' support has been tremendous on the channel so far, and I just know that with your continued support, this channel can be something really special. So thank you, and yeah, let's get back into this video. So a lot of you guys, if you're watching this video, probably saw my reaction to Veteran. And I'll admit, I wasn't too familiar with this style of music before that, and so my first reaction to Veteran was to be expected. I thought it was very different and kind of weird, and it wasn't really my style, and it wasn't really for me, and I didn't enjoy the project as much. I thought that it was interesting, and I tried to point out all the positives to it, but for the most part, it really came across as somebody who had no idea what he was listening to. And a lot of you guys have asked me since that video whether I'd listen to it again, whether it had grown on me, and the answer to that is absolutely that project has grown on me. You know, it's a style that I still don't listen to all that much. It's still not really my cup of tea, but my taste and my, how should I say this? Yeah, I'll just say my taste. My taste for that style of music has definitely developed a little bit, and I've definitely been more interested and appreciative of that style of music, and a huge reason why is because of JPEGMAFIA and Veteran. So it's still not necessarily the style of music that I'm the most crazy about, but I definitely have a better understanding of it now, and I am definitely more willing to be ready for whatever he gives me on this project and be more accepting of it than I was on my first listen of Veteran. So this should be a more enjoyable video. I am really excited to listen to this. A lot of people have said really good things about this project. I don't want to necessarily go into it expecting too much of it because, you know, I really try to go into these things without bias. I am ready for music that is different and interesting. That much I can absolutely, you know, be sure of. I feel like that pretty much prefaces how I'm feeling going into this project, and I feel like that's a good introduction to this video. I know it's a little longer than usual, but I've been talking more in these videos. I've been feeling more comfortable on camera, so that's a good thing, I guess. One thing I do want to mention really quickly, and you can skip forward if you don't want to watch the rest of this intro, but if you do watch this intro, let me know in the comment section. I have been putting out more reviews lately. I know that this is primarily a reaction channel, and I know that the majority of my subscribers are here for the reactions, and they like watching me listen to the music, but the reason why I've been putting out a lot more reviews recently is because, first of all, I want to practice formulating my thoughts and presenting them on camera, and so writing reviews is a great way to do that, but I also feel like it allows me to create videos a little faster because the turnaround time for the editing on reviews is a little quicker, and I feel like it's easier for me to write a script than it is for me to sit down and try to formulate thoughts on the spot as I react to an album for the first time. I feel like it gives me some time to sit down with an album and give it 2 or 3 listens before actually giving my thoughts on it. I'm able to present better thoughts on the project and more detailed thoughts on the project. And so, you know, I know that you guys really enjoy the reactions, but if you would check out the reviews and see what I mean when I say that it allows me to present my thoughts in a more clear way, and it allows me to really dissect an album and its meanings and the intent behind it. And I feel like it's easier to rate an album on reviews than on first listens. So I will be continuing with the reactions, but just expect some more reviews as well in the future. And I plan to make this channel a balance of the 2 videos. So if like on any given Friday we get like 4 major projects, I'll maybe do like 2 reactions and 2 reviews, you know, and the channel will be a little more balanced that way, and you can watch whatever videos you prefer. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know where my head's at, why I've been doing those types of videos recently. I'm not completely switching the direction of the channel or anything like that. And just kind of giving you guys a little update, because I figured this will be a video that gets more views than the other ones, and so I figured this would be a good place to let you guys know what's going on. So with that being said, I apologize for the long introduction. The first track is Jesus Forgive Me, I'm a Thought. I have not listened to any of the singles off this project. Let's get into this. This is All My Heroes Are Cornballs by JPEGMAFIA. This will be interesting. Let's get it.
Get comfy in your disguise. Pray for my thoughts on the other side. Pray for my children, I can't get still alive. Pray that I end up like Charlie's third. I'm so confused, I ain't hard to find. Now I'm gonna see me in a pump. Suck no prominent, I was anonymous. I've been a funny.
There it is. Let's go. This is great.
My face, oh God. That makes no. Show me how to keep my pussy closed. She said, you better find a climb, make a hit recline. You know my shooter, drop it down. Clarity, nigga, if you work for me, I'll put you under me, nigga.
Oh man. So, has there been a more interesting introduction to a project than that so far this year? I'm not sure. You know, I don't think that there has been. This is really different. I was expecting it to be a little more experimental, actually, but that was a little more, not mainstream, but tame, almost. Those pianos are really beautiful, and the production was pretty straightforward. It was his performance about 3/4 of the way into his verses that was the thing that switched up. You know, he got a little more aggressive, he kind of started yelling a little bit, and giving us that punch of energy out of nowhere. It's almost like a slap to the face, but you kind of want more of it, you know? It's great. I like that song. I think that I'll definitely need more listens to dive into the layers of the lyrics for sure. But right now, musically, I'm interested. You know, it's hooked me in, and I love his use of the auto-tune. I think that the very minimal drums paired with those soulful, almost gospel-like keys, which makes sense because it's called Jesus Forgive Me, I'm a Thought, definitely makes for a really interesting and kind of more mellow introduction. Next track is Keenan versus Kel. Hold on, my dog's flipping out. Hold on.
Man, I really wish I was Illuminati. Niggas waiting on the peg like I'm done on a little thigh. Cause when I'm rolling, pressing up, it's only on occasions. I don't want relations. Has a body basis, smear home invasion.
Those little bells in the background are so sweet, man.
I don't know this. I don't know this.
Oh, switch up. Alright. So was the first track Keenan, and then this is Kel? I love that guitar. The drums are so energetic too. Is this going to transition to the next track? Oh, it did. Alright, hold on, let's pause it. Alright, I want to pause it because I want to give my thoughts on that track, but I just really wanted to hear that transition. That was really well executed. I loved that transition, really. Alright, so Keenan versus Kel. The first half was pretty sweet, almost. You know, the little bells in the background, it was a little uplifting, it was kind of playful, you know, it was a little softer. And then with the second half, we get the really energetic drums and that great distorted guitar. And of course, his yelling, belting vocals over that instrumental just completely switches up the mood and the energy of the track. I think it's great. I do feel like a lot of the lyrics are going over my head, unfortunately. You know, anybody who's been watching me for a while knows that I am a production-oriented listener. So like the first time I listen to a song, I always hear more in the production than I do lyrically. And that's part of the reason why you guys like watching my channel, is because I always break down the production, I feel, pretty well. So like I said, I do feel that there are lyrics going over my head, and you guys can let me know in the comment section for sure. But right now, I'm just digging the whole vibe of the project, the really unpredictable, chaotic energy of the project, you know, and at the same time, he feels, you know, it sounds like he's peeling back layers of himself a little bit. You know, there are some pretty vulnerable lines, I think, in here. He talks about some of, like right here, he says he had some thoughty phases, you know, which is kind of like a funnier way of saying that he has a past where he experimented and he, you know, he had a bunch of relationships that probably didn't work out so well, and at least that's what I'm getting from it. So he's opening up a little bit, but it's very subtle and it's veiled, so you have to like look into what he's saying in order to kind of catch these messages, because if you're not listening for them, then all you hear is really the energy of the song and the vibe of the track. So I do feel like the lyrics are indicative of some things that maybe he wasn't telling us, you know, and kind of, like I said, exposing some layers to himself. That would require subsequent listens for me to really dive into. For now, like I said, I'm enjoying the music. Beta male strategies. This should be fun. I already love the little vocals in the background. Let me move you guys here. There you are.
Ain't no details, ain't no conversations, ain't no.
Did he sidechain the vocal sample to the kick? It sounds like it.
Say what you said on Twitter right now.
So his vocals are like coming forward and back. It's pretty interesting. The guitar, that's so creative.
Block with the dick. Y'all be typing it.
This with headphones on must be a trip. Yeah, man. So you heard the aggressive synths. You know, I don't know how to say it. Is it like a saw wave? I think that's how you say it. I haven't really messed around with production in a little bit, but I know that it's a harsher sounding synth, you know, and he also uses the really distorted guitar. I think he sidechained the kick in the beginning to the actual vocal samples, so whenever the kick hit, the vocal samples volume would drop and then immediately come back up to kind of make the kick emphasized a little more, because that kick wasn't really that punchy. You know, he chooses really interesting sounds for his drums. Sometimes he does them with his mouth. It's part of the creativity. It's part of his creative process. I think it's really interesting. I like it, actually. I always love when people incorporate the beatboxing and actual vocal drums into the songs. I think it's really great. His voice does this really cool thing where it's like it gets up front in your face and out of nowhere it fades away and then comes right back. And he actually does that with the instrumentals as well later on in the track. It's a really interesting listen, man. That little vocal sample in the beginning kind of lets you think that this track is going to be kind of like sweeter and, again, more mellow like that first track, but out of nowhere he just hits you with these aggressive instrumentals. It's just fun to listen to, man, you know? I mean, it's really interesting, creative music. And like I said, with headphones on, this song must be a trip. Next track is called JPEGMAFIA Type Beat. He's pretty hilarious when it comes to naming his tracks. You know, it's interesting because he did say, "You think you know me," and that's not the first time that he says that on this project. He kind of like throws that in there out of nowhere, "You think you know me." And like I said, it feels like this project is kind of peeling back a couple layers to him, you know, and it's kind of like revealing a little bit more about himself. And the fact that he says, "You think you know me," as he reveals a little bit more about himself, is, I feel, kind of validating what I just said about the layers and kind of showcasing a few little details about him on these songs, you know, and being a little more sincere and kind of opening up a little bit more on the tracks. At least that's again what I'm getting from it. I could be way off base. Man, where did these keys come from, man? Alright, so JPEGMAFIA Type Beat was a skit, or an interlude, or whatever you want to call it. It was like less than a minute long. He actually did have a few of those on Veteran as well. They were like the 30-second tracks. I think he had one on there that was like 13 seconds long, something like that, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, it was a really interesting, hard-hitting track. It's got really great energetic drums. I love the fact that he's yelling his ad-libs as the "we're getting stronger" repeats itself over and over again. Could represent growth. The fact that they're saying "we're getting stronger" could represent him feeling more confident and secure with himself. Or it could just be an interesting track to listen to. Again, there are multiple different positions that people could take about the meanings of these songs and what they're saying. Right now, since it's my first listen, I'm just trying to enjoy what I'm hearing, and that was, again, really energetic, aggressive, in your face. I love the sounds he chose for the drums. That really loud snare, it was great. I liked it. Grimy Waifu, like I said, he's creative with his titles, is next. Someone is cooking food, and Smells amazing. I might have to take a break to eat something and sit in front of a fan for a little bit. I'll be back. Again, another seamless transition. I paused it, but I noticed it. Oh man, the guitar and the flute.
Coming at you. Take these bullets from me. That's my grimy waifu. Hey, waifu.
Ah.
Ha! They steady jumping into bad. Stack it up, stack it up, stack it up. Stack it up, pack it up. Whoa, hold up.
I'm liking its vocalizing.
I'll be there.
I'm assuming this is the transition for the next track. Okay, so is it just me, or is this album so far sounding a little more friendly and approachable for new listeners and people who are new to this style of music than Veteran was? You know, again, it could be because I'm a little more familiar with this style now because of Veteran, but I do feel like Veteran was a little more experimental in nature so far up until this point in the project. I feel like it was a little tougher to get into for a newer audience, whereas this one so far, I mean, that last beat, it was different, and it still did have the parts where it cuts out of nowhere and adds a little bit of distortion to his vocals out of nowhere, and he switches up the beat out of nowhere, and he is a little bit still experimental with it, but for the most part that beat is pretty friendly to somebody who listens to maybe trap or R&B because of that smooth guitar riff and the flutes and the drum pattern. You know, it's not super distorted, it's not extremely heavy. I feel like that has kind of been the case with this project so far. It definitely feels catered to an audience that is maybe not so familiar with his very experimental style, and to kind of ease them into his discography and his music. I'm not sure. That's just my impression. And you can let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section if you feel like this is a little bit more approachable than Veteran was. But up until now, I feel like it's definitely friendlier musically. I feel like it's more melodic in nature. You know, I feel like Veteran was very rhythmic. It definitely focused a lot on percussion and mouth sounds and drums and static, you know, and things like that. Things that aren't necessarily melodic, but they add rhythm to the beat. I feel like this one's definitely more melodic in nature, and I'm liking it. I think it's enjoyable. But you guys can let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and yeah, we can have that discussion. Next track is PTSD.
Oh my god.
There it is again. You think you know me.
Young slut from the bottom of the East Coast. The bookie and the money in the mattress. Bulldog and the whip and the boots, pussy in the hand. Why? I hate when niggas throw shit in his head to get hit. Where in the world?
That's hard, bro.
And when I hit you, nigga, damn nigga. And when I hit you, nigga, don't be calling no cops.
Oh my god.
Cops. All that bullshit. Nigga, damn nigga. And when I hit you, nigga,
Yo.
cops.
That acoustic guitar riff, the chord progression over that main guitar loop is so amazing as that transition. I love how it cuts out of nowhere and the bounce just hits perfectly with the downbeat when he starts his verse again. I want to listen to that again. I'm sorry. Oh man. That's on a playlist. Love that, man. Oh, I love this track. Alright, man. Yo, so far that's my favorite track. I love the instrumentals. I love the use of the guitars. The guitar's transitions sound great. I love the chord progressions. I like that little main guitar loop. The drums are awesome. His delivery is so emphatic and energetic and aggressive, and it's so in your face. And the fact that it's called PTSD fits perfectly with the subject matter. I mean, this track is awesome. Everything about it is great. I feel like it's not one of those tracks that you have to listen to in the context of an album to enjoy, which is why I singled it out and added it specifically to my playlist. Yeah, man, that track is awesome. I really like that one.
It's a weed.
He just said Peggy 18, bro. This guy. For those of you that didn't catch the Peggy 18 reference, so I mean, I'm not like an expert on the topic, but every time I hear Peggy 18, I always remember like in video game trailers, you know how they have like games that are rated M for mature. That's like the rating M for mature in Europe, I think. It's Peggy 18, so like 18 years and older to play the game. And And every time they have a trailer for a game that is for mature audiences, they always say Peggy 18 at the beginning of the trailer. So I'm assuming that this means that like this track, or maybe this project specifically, is for mature audiences. You know, it could mean a number of different things.
I feel like Sammy Zayn. I'm moving, making waves. Tell the right is right, get it tired. Car, they call me Kevin James. They play you like Kevin Hart. Let the kids call me Kevin.
Switching up the synths for the chorus.
I guess that is just a piece of cycle. Papa ended up like a plane. I got booked for Coachella. Enemies can't say the same. I've been beat. You know what? I just. They never stop.
Alright, so let's see. Things that I noticed on that track. I like the fact that for the verses, we've got one synth going on, and it's a little more harsh, it's a little more aggressive. And for the chorus, it goes into a more smooth, more melodic synth. I like that he sings on the chorus, and it's actually a pretty sweet chorus, actually. It sounds really, really cool to me. It sounds great, in my opinion. I like that the verses, he makes some movie references, he makes some video game references. Maybe that's why he said Peggy 18 in the beginning, you know. I like the drums. I think that the snare are very reverberant. It adds space to the track. It adds atmosphere, character. I thought that the lines about Adam Sandler and Damian Wayne were pretty clever. And then with that second part, No Child Left Behind, he talks about how feeble he is and how he's evil and he's like a baby. So maybe he's talking about innocence. He's talking about sensitivity, and he says that even though he is sensitive, he expects not to be treated like a child. But yeah, and he does that over the really interesting synths, keys. You know, it sounds like a xylophone almost. I'm really enjoying the different sounds that he's using with his synths so far on this project. They sound more melodic, they sound more playful and more fun, but at the same time, he still has those harsh, gritty synths. You know, he still finds a way to incorporate those as well. This project has been really interesting so far sonically. The mixing is definitely not conventional. His voice definitely isn't as loud as it would be if this were a more mainstream song with a more conventional approach. Which is why I have the volume turned up so loud that you can barely hear me while I talk during the song, because I want to hear what he's saying, but at the same time, the elements to the instrumentals are just so blown out of proportion sometimes in comparison to his vocals. But it's not mixed poorly. It does sound like everything is intentional, you know? And it's not like the track is muddy at all. It doesn't sound muddy to me. It sounds like everything was very deliberate. You can still understand what he's saying, which to me is very important when you're not listening to mumble rap, is that you can understand the person and what they're saying. All My Heroes Are Cornballs is next. Yo, like I said about the synths, man, this one feels like it was made in, I think the plugin is called Sakura. I'm not certain. In FL Studio. It might have been made in Sakura. It's got these really Asian sounding plucked string synths that sound a lot like this, and I personally am really enjoying this one. This one sounds awesome.
I can't keep no job, I can't, 'cause you don't wanna get them guns involved. Cause you're what?
I'm in love with that synth, man. Switching it up out of nowhere, but I'm loving the guitars. Alright, so loving the production on that. That synth is absolutely beautiful, man. I love the way it sounds. It might not have been made in Sakura, but I remember whenever I used to play around in FL Studio with that plugin, I just used to love the sounds that the synths, and it definitely reminded me of that. It's so playful, it's so youthful, it's so refreshing. I love the way that he played around with it. I like the singing on this. I think that the rapping is pretty dope. He's portraying like the humanity, the human side of him, you know, because a lot of people just see him as the celebrity. But, you know, at the end we get this clip of his friend ordering a smokehouse burger quite clumsily, actually, and it's pretty funny, but we just see, you know, that him and along with all his friends, they're all people just like us. And the fact that the track is called All My Heroes Are Cornballs, you know, it's like people who idolize him realize that he is a cornball as well, just like any other person. I think it's great. I like it. I like the message. You know, celebrities are just people too, and they all make mistakes, and they're all just as clumsy as regular people are. They just happen to have the entire world watching. Yeah, I think that the song is fun. I think it's one of the more melodic tracks in terms of the production. You know, it's definitely one of the friendlier songs in terms of the production as well. It's not as distorted and aggressive, and it's very pleasant and enjoyable, which is something that I really didn't see myself saying about a JPEGMAFIA track. But yeah, man, it's dope. Next track is BBW. These birds, man, I swear to God, makes every single one of my videos look like it's being recorded outside in the middle of nature or something like that. I live in the woods, by the way.
Rap in prison. I know these basement dwellers need a villain. How you living?
Why do I feel like he's taking a page out of Logic's handbook or something like that? It's definitely, I mean, you can't tell me this doesn't sound like Logic. Even his vocal inflection has changed to sound a little more nasally, like Logic. Now, I wouldn't think that he would just make fun of him or something like that, but it's inspired by the style, parodying the style. I mean, either or, the style is the same.
Go out the motorway. I'm getting paid off this hard today. Don't want me dead. Fire helmets won't protect your head. Don't get sick of Jesus, filled with that little nigga.
Whoa.
My dad told me. No, not at all.
That's what my dad told me too.
Yeah, so that one's got like the vocal singing in the background, very mellow, like old school boom bap beat. It's got his vocal inflection, all very similar to Under Pressure Logic, you know, but I'm not saying that he's copying that or anything like that, or that he even was inspired by it. You know, not necessarily. It's what the sound reminded me of. I think it's an interesting track. It's definitely on the shorter side of things. It's almost like a transition or an interlude, if you want to think about it that way. But it's dope. It's more mellow. It's not necessarily as melodic as All My Heroes Are Cornballs. It's still got a nice rhythm to it. It's still got a nice vibe to it. You know, Peggy's doing his thing on this so far. Next track is Prone. I love when he does that with the bass. There's the hard-hitting, aggressive JPEGMAFIA that is a little more reminiscent of that veteran style. I love when he does that thing with the bass where he pitches the bass up an octave for like one note and makes it really loud out of nowhere in the track. I think it's great. It's creative, makes the song hit a little harder, keeps you on your toes. It's unpredictable, it's hard-hitting. It's aggressive and in your face. He talks about killing people on this track, and it's very distorted and loud, and man, is it fun to listen to. You know, it's like, it's one of those mosh pit headbang give yourself a concussion tracks, man. It's great. The next track is Life's Hard. Here's a song about Sorrel. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Got no time for it, baby. I want you all to myself.
Alright, so that's a really quick interlude. It features some really interesting synths and keys, while JPEGMAFIA kind of vocalizes a little bit. But really it just kind of serves as an interlude to give us a little breathing room, I guess, for the rest of the project. It's cool, it's mellow, it's interesting. And yeah, that's really it. Next track is Thought Tactics. Man, That's another mellow track, and I'm really enjoying these different synths that he's experimenting with, dude. Alright, so the battery pack died, but we should be good to go now. So, yeah, like I said, that's another really mellow track, and I'm really enjoying the synths that he's experimenting with. We've got a lot of playful sounds, a lot of really smooth sounds, you know, R&B style synths, paired with the really aggressive synths as well. I like the way that he's sang the chorus. I like the melody that he was singing. I think it contrasts his delivery on the verses nicely, you know, which is more monotone, and I think that it's just a really interesting song. It sounds like he's rapping from the point of view of a woman, which is probably something that he has been doing for a while, and I'm just now picking up on. Thanks, Genius, for that. You know, I think it's just an interesting track, and I like the mellow vibes. I like the friendlier sound that he's going for on this project so far. You know, it's something that I've been saying for a while now during this video, but it does sound like these tracks are more pleasant, you know, and easier to listen to on the ears. So I like that. Next track is Free the Frail. Love the humming.
I feel annoyed, I'm feeling strange, I'm feeling games, I'm feeling void. I'm like, oh, I'm on the web, I let the gross, I see the growth. I'm feeling gay, I'm tired, I need the bread, stat. Find the strength of mine. If it's good, then it's good.
Oh yeah.
This shit is out of my hands.
Performance. So strong.
Y'all be praying to Jehovah, I'll be praying to Oprah. I never whip the song.
Figure out now what it is that you need.
Yo, that's more of a vulnerable track, talking about not relying on the strength of his image, talking a little bit about his past, talking about how annoying it is to see his growth and how quick it happened. You know, he says he feels strange, he feels the gains, but he also feels a void. I can imagine that must be a strange feeling for sure. You know, he did kind of, I saw that there was an interview where he was talking about how long he's been doing this for and how he only really blew up recently, and how strange that must be feeling. And he must still be adjusting, clearly, because of what he's saying on this track. I would say it's relatable, but I still don't know what it's like to blow up. Maybe one day with you guys' help. You know, I think it's great. I love the chorus and how soulful and sincere the chorus sounds. I love the feature. I'm really digging the production. I like the little synths that go on while he's doing his verses, the harsher synth, but then they cut out when he does the chorus and we get the friendlier sounding synths and keys, and you know, it's just a really nice vibe. I think it's a nice track, man. It's definitely another track that is more pleasant on the ears. That's really the whole vibe that I'm getting with this project, is that it's way more pleasant than Veteran was. It's not to say it's better, it's just easier on the ears for sure. Post-verified lifestyle.
I took out the stick in the truck, treating this bitch at the cup, Mac, yeah, we died in the judge, fucking I'm ready to fall.
Hard left.
Get it. Well, let's get it.
You know when
The plucking is so crazy.
you get kind of, it's just something I grew up on.
When I die, I want all my enemies to take a side, say RP. And everyone that I don't verify, cause these niggas really think a handle can handle me. Young black Ali G.
So a really interesting change of pace with that outro. It sounds very lo-fi and muffled out and mellow and smooth, with the really soft vocalizing, in stark contrast to his performance and his delivery on that first part of the track, which was very aggressive. You know, the beat wasn't necessarily very aggressive, but his delivery definitely was. There was kind of like an interlude in the middle of the track where they were talking. There was this woman talking, saying that she didn't really know what to say. She was just like, it was filler for the track, really. And then that really smooth beat came in, and he talked a little bit about the consequences of becoming famous suddenly and how he is living his life now that he is verified. It's pretty interesting, you know, and I think there were like 3 switch-ups in this track, so it was very unpredictable, and creative is another word to describe it. You know, I'll need a few more listens to see whether it grows on me in terms of replayability. But off of my first listen, it definitely was a fun listen and definitely interesting to hear what he had to say and how he was saying it. Next track is Basic Bitch Tear Gas.
He's talking about what he wants and just sits on his broke ass. got it, can't get no love.
Yo, I really wish he put out like a full version, man. It was interesting because he was singing the melody to No Scrubs, but the beat in the background wasn't necessarily following him, you know. It sounded like something that was slowed down, and it wasn't playing the same tune that he was singing. So there was a little bit of contrast between his vocals and the beat, but it's such a short track that it doesn't go on for long enough to really become a problem or an issue, you know. Short and sweet and interesting, and like I said, it kind of leaves us wanting a full version, you know, a little more. I thought that was a really interesting kind of interlude. I like that. That was pretty dope. Dot's freestyle remix.
Put the metal to metal, we gon' nick him and nine. One deep, baby, can't top it. Sending bullets at your zombies, you never harm. Niggas try to be a numb, but I've been playing with pistol. Do a feature for what? Two for what? Like.
I love that horn.
And you know that ain't like a cruise.
Make me cry, nigga.
Yeah, so that outro sounded really dreamy. Apparently for this beat, he actually recorded fire everywhere while he was in Hawaii. And yeah, the beat really does sound hectic and chaotic, but all there really is a synth, some drums, and that fire, the fire sound that kind of surrounds everything. And it makes it sound kind of busy, but there really isn't that much going on. So it was a really interesting minimalistic approach that didn't really give out a minimalistic result, which is very interesting and again very creative. One thing that is really inspiring about JPEGMAFIA is that he's limitless. You know, he doesn't really set any boundaries. He doesn't really obey any rules to music making. There really are none. And he is such a refreshing reminder of that fact. You know, every now and then we all get kind of stuck within these confines of what music should be. And he's just kind of like a reminder that music is whatever you want it to be, really. He made fire into music. The fact that that's a possibility is just, it's a breath of fresh air, really. So shout out to JPEGMAFIA for that, man. That, you know, every time I listen to stuff like this, it's not necessarily radio friendly, and it's not necessarily mainstream, and it's not as melodic, but it's so creative and experimental that you really can't help but be inspired by it, you know, to create something different and special. And you've got to admire him for that, man. Whether you like his music or not, you've got to admire the creativity. So yeah, man, that's something that I kind of failed to do with my first listen of Veterans. So it's something that I'm trying to really appreciate with this project and how special he really is, man. The next track is Buttermilk Jesus type beat, so I'm assuming it's another interlude. Whoa, that got real loud real quick. There's like a gospel feel to the keys, but right when you start feeling that little groove of the gospel, it switches up. Yeah, man, that's interesting. There's like a really cool gospel feel to the production, to the keys specifically. But right when you start to notice it and you're like, oh man, these keys kind of feel really soulful. They kind of switch up the chord progression, hit you off guard with a chord that you weren't expecting, bring in the vocals and cut out the keys, or, you know, do something interesting with the bass. I mean, he always keeps you on your toes with his music. It's so fun to listen to. This is the last track. This is the 18th track of this project. It's called Poppy, I Missed You. And yeah, let's get it.
Like a dildo, you know, like a creep when I kick though. Young black man with leverage. I hate old white niggas, I'm prejudiced. But I'ma take you niggas money like a reverend. I'm trying to leave niggas to free and Peggy Harry. Sorry, practice on it. Hey, round here niggas really think shit great. Black ass think blacks is the man,
Alright, so on the last track, he kind of airs some of his grievances with white people and the racism that they display towards him and towards black people in general. And he basically kind of flexes, you know, with the fact that he is taking their money, basically. You know, they pay him to be an artist and to perform, and he's kind of bragging about the fact that he's getting rich off of them. You know, it's not necessarily, it's not the most pleasant track on the project. It's not the friendliest. It's not the most politically correct. but it's definitely one of the most sincere, and you've got to commend it for that. You know, he really comes off as straight up and just sincere and honest on this track. There's no veil, there's no metaphor. This is it. It's what he feels. Very straightforward and clean cut, and you know, I like that about this track. I like how raw it is. I think that the outro is really, it's beautiful in a sense, really. It's kind of eerie and creepy and ethereal, but I feel like the way that it was produced and orchestrated was really, it was really great, is what I'm trying to say. I like that. I like that outro. I think it closes out the project, kind of sums up what he's feeling and gives us that last little glimpse, you know, into another layer of JPEGMAFIA. I think it's dope. It's cool. So, I am by no means an expert on this project after one listen. I do think that it was more pleasant and more easy on the ears than Veteran was on a first listen. I feel like maybe this was more melodic in his approach, whereas Veteran was definitely more rhythmic in his approach. I do feel like this one would be easier for a new listener to ease into his style. There is still the harsh synths, the aggressive deliveries, and the raw vocals and the crazy, you know, sound effects and stuff like that, but it's just not as experimental as Veteran, you know? I think that I like the change in direction. I like how melodic he was. I like the fact that he was more vulnerable and sincere on this project. You know, like I said, it felt kind of like peeling back layers, and I do think that that is one of the themes of this project, is getting to know a little bit more about him, because he does keep saying, "You think you know me," over and over again on this project, as he reveals, you know, layers and layers of who he is. And sometimes it's behind a veil, and sometimes it's straightforward like that last track, but either way, with subsequent listens, I do feel like this is he really put himself into this project, and I think that that is admirable. I do think that the creativity is very admirable. The fact that he just didn't put any limits on himself and no rules as to how he approaches his music is very inspiring. And I think that this is definitely going to be one of my favorite projects of the year. I'm not going to say it's album of the year yet, because I do have to give it more listens. I feel like that would just be silly to jump on the hype train behind this album and say, oh, this is the best album I've heard all year. Because honestly, it's not, like I said at the beginning of this video, the style of music that I normally come to listen to. So I really have to give it more listens to see how well it stacks up against the other projects I've heard this year. But off my first listen, what I can tell you is that it is a great project. It is worth your listen, whether you are the type of person who likes to listen to lyrics or whether you like to listen to production. There is something for everybody here. I personally focused a lot on the production on my first listen. It's just the type of listener that I am, and I do hope to catch more and more layers to the lyrics as I listen going forward, excuse me, you know, to this project. But I think it's a really enjoyable listen, and like I said, it's an easier listen than Veteran. Those are my thoughts on one listen of this project. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections, anything that I missed. And like I said at the beginning of this video, if you like the channel, if you like the videos I'm making and you want to show some love and some support, along with subscribing, I would love it if you would consider supporting the channel on Patreon to help me increase the quality of the videos. It would help the channel to grow and to draw some new subscribers to the channel and really help to make these videos better, because I do want to make these videos as best as I possibly can. And with some additional support, I'll be able to. So I would also be able to, like I said, diversify the content of the channel. And yeah, check out some of those rewards for the tiers, because like I said, I'm trying to make them worth it. So with that being said, thank you all so much for watching this video. I will be back in another video very, very soon. Until then, guys, stay safe out there. Peace.